Welcome back. We're talking to Siddika Jaffer, the founder of the Halal Dining Club. People have noticed an increase in footfall in business as a result of being on the website.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we've definitely got a couple of examples where we've worked with restaurant owners and they've definitely given us that feedback. And the plan is to go out to as many restaurant owners that are out there and help them as well.
You see it all the time, don't you? I see it on the streets of London where I live. It's restaurants opening all the time, and then a few months later, all this investment's gone in, and a few months later, it's closing. So getting the word out is so important, isn't it? It's not just about footfall in terms of people who walk past.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many equations to getting running a restaurant well, right? So obviously part of that is location, part of that is food, and I think what a lot of restaurant owners do is they invest in all of that, but then they don't necessarily invest in the marketing outreach. All the marketing that they're doing is still based on flyering. I don't know if you get leaflets through your door all the time, but that's got a really bad response rate. Often people just end up putting it straight in the recycling bin. And what restaurant owners need to be brave enough to do is step out and connect with people in the digital world, and hopefully that's where we can help them.
Now I wanted to speak to you a little bit about being a female entrepreneur. Unfortunately, the entrepreneurial world is still dominated by men. Have you had any sort of encounters that lead you to believe that people are judging you as a woman, as they very much shouldn't do? But
there are some very funny experiences that I've had. So I've had instances of turning up to a meeting and people looking over my shoulder and going, "So where's Mr. Jaffer?" Like, there is no Mr. Jaffer, I am Mrs. Jaffer, and it is actually me who runs the business. So there is still that association that you can't possibly be at the helm of a company, particularly being a female, being an Asian female as well. So there are lots of instances of where I've had to face that. But I think in the broader world now, even in the business world, there are so many studies that prove that actually having a woman in leadership positions or women in the board is actually more profitable for the company, whether you're a large-scale company or a small-scale company. And I think people are beginning to recognise that. And I hope that other people will take kind of the same sort of bold step forward, almost, as it were, and not be afraid of the challenges that are out there.
Particularly Asian women, because traditionally, there's many cultures that actually suppress women a little bit, and women feel maybe not as confident as other cultures in coming forward and putting themselves out there for business.
Sure.
What's your background? Where do you come from?
So I was born in Kenya, and I moved to London when I was 10 years old and sort of grown up here. But my parents were also born in East Africa. And before that, my grandparents came from what was then one India. There wasn't the partition then, they left kind of before that. So however, we kind of have sort of a connection with India as well as Pakistan, with family members living, having moved and migrated to both sides, basically. So yeah, culturally, I guess I am Asian. I view myself as African Asian. But the amazing thing is that we have an affinity with both Pakistan and India. So in terms of your question about culture and what impact that has on women in sort of business, it is true, and I don't think it's just confined to the Asian culture. There are lots of stereotypes that we've kind of grown up with women's places in the home, the woman's priority are the children, and I don't think that's any different. I mean, I've sort of lived and worked in quite a few different countries now, and that is still the stereotype that holds. But yes, I suppose it is, it does come with its challenges. But I'm fortunate in the sense that I've not had any of that put upon me by my immediate family. In fact, they've all been very supportive and encouraging. And there are obviously still the questions of how you're going to manage everything and how you're going to manage the kids and so on, which
they wouldn't ask a man.
They wouldn't,
no.
And you kind of, there's two ways you could handle that. You could kind of either get annoyed about the fact that they're still asking this question in, 2017, or you could just kind of say, well, fine, it's a cultural thing that's been imbued in them for years, and we're just trying to change that. So I think it's really important to get your family on board, and I have done that, from my kids to my relative, and I think it's important to have that support.
Awfully, one part of me wants to say, what does your husband think? Actually, it doesn't really matter what your husband thinks, because if you were a man sitting here, I wouldn't say, well, what does your wife think? But I'm going to ask you anyway, what does your husband think about the business?
So, I mean, he's also had, he's worked at a number of startups in his past, and when he met me, I was a working woman, a sort of career was important to me, and he's always understood that. And for him as well, it was fine, careers are important to both of us, but as long as the children don't have to suffer or compromise, at whatever stage. So it's always been a little bit tricky about how do we juggle things? How do we as a family make it work? So we're both allowed freedom, and he travels a lot for his work, for example. So oftentimes it's just me and the kids. And with me gone as well, it can be a bit challenging. So this is where we need to kind of rope in the rest of the family, basically. But he's been incredibly supportive, and I don't think I could have done this. There are times when you have your challenges about whether everything's going to get done perfectly or handled perfectly, and it's not. It's a rocky road for all of us, but he's been very understanding about the fact that this is a challenging time for us in my startup career, and yeah.
As a family, whether you're a man or a woman,
yeah,
or whatever.
Or whether you're the children as well. It does affect everybody. It's not something that's easy to do. Yeah.
But very worthwhile.
Definitely. I mean, I think, like I said, for us, the joy for the team is getting users to say to us we've helped change their lives, and getting restaurant owners to tell us that their business has increased because of working with us, and that's amazing.
So what would you say to inspire other women who might have a good idea but might be a bit reticent, through lack of good role models or confidence or whatever? What would you say to them, if they had an idea and wanted to sort of get started as an entrepreneur?
Sure. No, so I think the thing that women have actually in their arsenal as businesswomen is that we're very intuitive and we are insightful, and most purchasing decisions are made by women anyway. So I think just have that confidence in the sense that they understand the marketplace because they're consumers to begin with, right? And I think the second thing is to not be afraid to go out there and just try. But I would say that entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. It is a whole family commitment. It's not just a single person commitment, unfortunately. And this is true whether you're male or female. I mean, there's lots of examples of male entrepreneurs who've had divorces and so on because it's extremely stressful running a startup. And if you don't have the family support behind you, it can cause lots and lots of problems. And I've run into male entrepreneurs who basically told me that this is their third startup and they've lost all their friends and they've lost all their family, but they believe passionately in what they do. So I would say to anybody out there, whether you're female or male, if you believe in something and you're really passionate about it, that is the essential ingredient. This is not about making money quickly, because that's not what successful entrepreneurs do. You're out there because you want to make a difference to the world. And I think women, again, going back to, why would women be better at this, is because we tend to be passionate about things. We want to make a difference. We want to help others. It's kind of in our DNA. With those ingredients in place and with the support of your friends and family, I think, why not?
It feels like a very good time for female entrepreneurs and females in business anyway for me, because people are now waking up to the fact that, we have just as many skills as men. We might not have the role models, above us on the boards and that sort of thing, but that is slowly changing. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny when you said that, it made my mind go back to the time of Prophet Muhammad. So I'm Muslim, but Prophet Muhammad's first wife was Khadija, and she was the entrepreneur of the century. In today's terms, her wealth would be in the billions, right? So she was a businesswoman, and at that time he married her. And so if she's supposed to be an example to women, then we've got examples that are, 1,400 years old of women in business positions and in leadership positions. And I think actually, unfortunately, it's culture rather than religion that's held us back. And I think, we can look up to role models like that and what she must have had to endure at that time as well in sort of, 6th century Arabia is, I'm sure it wasn't without its challenges. So, but it is a great time in terms of more and more people, whether they're journalists or people in business, writing reports about the fact that having women in the workplace is beneficial for the whole economy.
You're right about her being a wonderful role model. Why don't we talk about that more? I don't understand that.
I don't know. It's really funny because I think religion and culture are two often sometimes very contrasting things. There are some things that happen culturally and become sort of the way things are done that are not part of religion at all. And I think it's important to step back and kind of go, right, what's right here, rather than what's cultural. And to some extent, I'm happy to challenge cultural norms when my religion says it's okay to do so.
Because culture and religion should be two separate things,
exactly.
Really.
Yeah.
And have you come across any particular specific challenges as a Muslim woman?
It is interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say that I've had anybody come up to me and say I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I think the questions are more about halal and its complexity, and why we list restaurants that serve alcohol, for example, when we should be taking sort of a stricter view. But my response to that is, look, we are a diverse community. There's 1.6 billion of us. What an attitude towards halal is in Canada is not necessarily going to be the same to what it is in Pakistan or the Middle East. And because we're trying to be a global platform, we're not trying to dictate what is right, what's wrong. We're just simply saying, here's all the information that's out there, and it's for you to make that decision. And that's been the area where I've had the most challenges and the most criticism, to be honest.
In what way? Can you think of any specific examples?
Yeah, so for example, I remember in the very early days, it was very early on, so these things sort of stay with you a little bit longer. We listed a restaurant that served alcohol, and we had a big lot of comments on Facebook telling us, how dare we list restaurants that serve alcohol? And we said, look, we're simply telling you that there is this restaurant that serves halal meat. It happens to serve alcohol, but it's your choice. I mean, lots of halal diners go there, but if you don't like it, we're not telling you that you have to go to it. We're simply making that information available. So the criticism was, why were we promoting the alcohol? And we're like, we weren't. We were actually flagging up that this place serves alcohol. If you're comfortable with that, that's fine. If you're not, then simply don't go there. So
it should be a personal choice, isn't
exactly.
it? Some people are comfortable going to a restaurant that serves alcohol, but they're not going to drink themselves.
Exactly.
Some people, if you're a vegetarian, are comfortable. If you had to meet a friend at a steakhouse, for example, you'd be comfortable eating there, and other people would be, refuse to go.
Absolutely.
At all. But you're not making that judgment,
right? And I think when you are living as a minority in a country where halal isn't everywhere, there are going to be times when you're put into that situation, whether it's work colleagues or friends or so on. And really what we're trying to do is make that information available so that you feel like you do have some options and you're not just stuck with the salad option every single time you go out and dine. Yeah.
And the people who don't want to go to a restaurant that serves alcohol, for example, can tick that option presumably.
Exactly.
On their website.
So we actually have a filter setting on our site saying only show me restaurants that don't serve alcohol, or only show me restaurants that are halal certified. So they can use the site as they wish. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Siddika. We'll just go for a break and we'll find out more about the Halal Dining Club when we get back.